Who's doing who first?
I'm doing you first, and we'll leave that on. We're not editing that out. I'm doing you first. This is the Onnit podcast. We'll jump into Mike Bledsoeville shortly. We're here with my man Mike Bledsoe.
What's going on?
You joined us in Austin, my friend.
I have. I've been here for a week now.
Tell us how you got here. Tell us about your journey to Austin.
How did I get to Austin? Well, Austin's my first step of my nomadic journey. So I decided. My wife likes to say yes, Matic, but I was like, I don't know. I'd say the last 6 months of my life, I've had a lot of personal development, and I've spent a lot of time reflecting on my life. And I realized that I had been putting a lot of stuff off until later, putting stuff off until when I make enough money, when my business is at a certain point, when I've completed that, and all this. And then I woke up one day and I realized that I'm not going to wait anymore. So I made everything in my life work around what exactly I wanted to happen. And one of the things I wanted to happen was to travel the world with my wife. So I have all these places, not just places. It has a lot to do with the people and the places. I don't know how many times I've traveled the world already, meeting people, and I get to spend an afternoon or a day with somebody or an hour interviewing them, and I want to go spend some real time with them, and not where I'm like interviewing them the whole time. And so, we're just traveling the world and hanging out with the people who I've been telling I'm going to come hang out with you for like 3 years. I've got a lot of friends like that, and so Austin's the first stop. So I made everything in the business, everything in my life work to make this happen. And it took just, if you would have asked me, I remember wanting to do this about a year ago, and I had this like 3-year plan to make it happen. And then in November, December, I was like, nope, it's happening now. And as soon as I decided it was happening now, it was about 30 days, about 30 to 45 days of crunch time to make it happen. But here I am. So I've been in Austin for a week, and I've been spending a lot of time at Onnit, hanging out with John Wolf, Sam Pogue, hanging out with you, and hung out with Aubrey a little bit, and just really getting to get embed into the culture of a place. And so initially I thought, I'm going to embed into the Austin culture, but what ended up happening is I embedded into the Onnit culture. Instead,
You're very welcome to be here,
brother. I don't even want to leave the building. I'm like, I could sit in the sauna, I could go do jujitsu, I can go lift some kettlebells and maces and shit. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's a good spot for sure.
Yeah.
And tons of good food, good music. It's a fucking great nightlife. But you guys just staying in like Airbnbs when you go to each place? Like, how you doing this? How you making this work?
We're staying with friends.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
So that definitely works then.
It makes it super easy. It works in there will definitely be times where we Airbnb it because we want to have our alone time. And so we're going to figure out, what the right ratio is. But one of the intentions, we have many different intentions of our travels, but one of our intentions is to create community wherever we're at. And then also condition ourselves to be able to ask. That's it.
That's big,
because, I think a lot of Americans are brought up to be really independent and to not ask for anything. And I'm definitely come from that school of thought. And so just saying, hey, can I stay with you? Or something like that.
Yeah. And
can be really hard for people to do. So we're practicing that. And I have so many amazing friends in different cities. In Austin, it was hard to see who we wanted to hang out with while we were here, like who we wanted to stay with, because, we have so many friends here that are just amazing.
Yeah, there's Paleo FX here is here every year. And obviously you guys have, Barbell Shrugged has been a mainstay coming here each year. I think was it in May last year, but it's at the end of April this year?
End of April this year. I think April 27.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be back here for that.
That'll be awesome, man. I'm looking forward to having you guys in town.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure, you go to one large city enough, you're going to fucking have some pretty locked down friends that you want to hang out with. Matt Vincent's become a good friend of mine. Every time he comes in from Louisiana, his coworker for Hate Brand Apparel lives here in Austin. So he'll just come and stay with me. And sometimes he brings his wife and we got an extra room. So it's nice having the space when guests are in town. then you can just say like, fuck yeah, man, let's hang. You know, and that's when you really get to know each other, you know?
That's it. Because I find myself when I was living at home being pretty isolated. People would come visit, but you know, I'm not having the community that I really want to practice, and I want to have the worldwide community. And I have a few friends that have done the nomadic minimalist thing, and there's a little trick. You go on Facebook and you can just search people who live in the city.
Oh, no shit.
And it'll just pull up all your friends that live in that city. You go, oh yeah, I went to college with that guy or whatever. And I've been meaning to catch up with that person, and I didn't realize they live in Denver. I thought they lived somewhere else. And you go, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm going to Denver. I'm going to reach out to them. You reach out to 10 people. I haven't had anyone say, no, you can't stay. You know,
well, you're a good guy. I'm sure there's some people that might try to pull it off, and
if you're a dick, you can't do this.
You're gonna get a lot of no's. Yeah.
We're gonna find out real quick who you are. It's like, I can't find anyone to hang out with. It's like, you need to change something about you.
If you're getting turned down at every step by your so-called friends, then you might have to take a hard look in the mirror.
That's right,
man. Well, that's good. So where are you going? Where are you going next?
Costa Rica.
Oh shit.
Yeah, we're only hitting really cool places.
I want to see JP Sears and his fiance out there, and I want to see Dr. Ben House. It's a guy I've been following on Facebook. He's got a wealth of fucking knowledge.
I've been talking to Ben.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I'm gonna see if I can hook up with him, because I'm there I haven't bought a return ticket. This is something like I never gotten into before. I've heard people go, oh, I just bought a one-way ticket to some other country. I'm like, huh, I've always bought a return ticket. It's a different feeling. You go, oh, I don't know when I'll be back.
Yeah.
So
yeah, our buddy Connor Moore's doing that right now. He's out in LA. He's in LA. He's doing some podcasts, and he's going to go up to San Francisco for an ayahuasca ceremony. Then he's going to go back to LA, and doesn't have a return flight. We'll see if he shows his face around here again. It might be
Connor's gone.
The sun is so sweet in SoCal, man. You know it from experience.
Dude, it is. It's I would say what I like about SoCal is it's very nurturing, and you can relax there. It's not a place to get shit done, though.
Well, it depends where you're at, right? Because there's parts of fucking LA where it's just a mind fuck with traffic. It's an hour to get anywhere, 5 miles down the road. But if you get towards the coast, you can start to get that fresher breath air. And
I think about SoCal, I think about the coast, because that's what attracted me. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, for sure. You got to be on the coast. There's no doubt.
What's the point going that far? So I was talking to my wife when we moved to SoCal originally. What's the point of moving to the West Coast if you're not going to live near the water?
Yeah, it is. I thought that a lot, you know, and this is, you know, I got friends that live in the Valley in SoCal. I lived in the peninsula in the Bay Area. It was 45 minutes to Santa Cruz, you know. Our work was there. Our friends were there. So it made sense. And then we could just drive to the beach when we wanted to, have a little commute to the beach. But there is something special about living right by the water and just going inland when you want to see other people.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. So let's break down a little bit, unpack, if you will, as Rob Wolf likes to call it. Let's unpack kind of what was going through your head in this transformation process you've had in the last 6 months. Because I think I saw you 3 or 4 months ago, maybe while you were balls deep in the transformation out at your spot.
Oh, yeah.
In Encinitas. And you had kind of alluded to a lot of the changes that were happening. But what are some of the things? I mean, we got to talk at this MAPS fundraiser at Aubrey's house the other night. Mm-hmm. And there was quite a bit of fucking tools that you were telling me about that sound really transformative and amazing. And I think a lot of people can get a lot out of that, you know, and you know, we're guys that have experimented with everything, with plant medicines, you name it. And we've both had transformative experiences from that. But some of the things you were mentioning were things that are available to everyone and completely legal. And I'm always curious because I want to know all the things, you know. I don't judge. I don't say what I will or won't do. But if you can hit the lowest common denominator, then that really excites me, because then for the people that aren't willing to venture into the unknown, you have something that's a bit more practical.
Yeah, there's you know, I think you and I are alike in that we're likely to be attracted to the taboo first. It's like, oh, I can't do that. Watch me. Yeah. I'm going to push that red button, you know? And so I think that plant medicine can be really attractive because of its taboo nature. And that's definitely what broke me down originally. Like, for me to be able to even want to get in these transformational experiences and being open enough to even wanting to do that, you know, psilocybin was originally a really good gateway into that transformation, and ayahuasca and other things. But in the last 6 months, I started participating. I had a lot of friends who also had a lot of experience with plant medicine, recommend that I check out some of these personal development courses that are out there and seminars. And I did the Landmark Forum and a series of that curriculum that followed. That was what Landmark really gave me was a lot of structure around what plant medicine had brought, and meditation has brought a lot of realization. And I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, I felt like I was out in space in a way, and that I really truly believe I was seeing reality more clearly than I had previously before, and that was true. And I was going to say more clearly than other people, but I can only, the only test is myself, right?
Yeah,
so I can't,
exactly.
like, comparing to other people is just not fair, because I actually have no idea what their experience is. But for me personally, I have been over time getting a clearer and clearer picture of what reality actually is. And then going through Landmark gave me like all of this very cerebral approach to things. Whereas a lot of times with plant medicines, it gives you the feeling of like, oh, I feel like this is true. And oh, I feel like that other thing that I had been practicing, the way I was being was not true. And this is more true for me now. And a lot of times with plant medicine, there's, a story that goes along with it. Is like, along my journey, this was shown to me as very symbolic. And it definitely helped me out. But these other tools, which are very cerebral in nature, really, really gave me a structure to have a conversation, because the way I see the world is our universe is based in language. And if we don't have the ability to communicate with ourselves and with others really, really well, and have the same conversation and have the same distinctions. And so what got brought to me during that time was, what do words actually mean, and having distinctions, and what conversations are we collapsing? A collapse in two different ideas. So one, maybe we have freedom in one hand and we have security in another. And I think most people walk around the world believing that you can't have freedom and security. You have to have one or the other. And they feel like freedom is on one side of the spectrum and security is on the other side of the spectrum. And if we want more security, we have to have less freedom. And if we want more freedom, we have to have less security. And that's a collapse in an understanding. And what we can do is we can uncollapse that and go, look, you can have freedom and security. These are not tied together in any way, except for in your own mind. And the reason it's tied together in your own mind is because you've created this little spectrum in your head out of these two words. Now, how many of these two words have we set up a spectrum? We could say gay, straight. These are things that we've said, oh, most people probably consider these things on this spectrum. They go, oh, either this much gay or this much straight or whatever. right?
Aubrey told me I was 12% gay, and I said, that's a fair assessment. That's a fair assessment. Maybe 20, 24%.
Your hugs are a little long.
I give a long hug. That's right. I'll brag about the length of my hug.
It's like long hugs and soft breaths. But these are things that these things may not even exist, and there might be a lot more flow there than people are willing to even have a conversation about. But I'm not making an argument for having both of these, but like, there's a lot of things in life where people go, oh, I can either have this or that. And I go, why not both? And so really having that conversation. So, having some of this more structured curriculum has been really good to create structures and conversations so that I can then interact with other people that have been through the curriculum. Now that was step one. Step two, I stepped into this 5-day retreat, which my friend Onnit she puts on. And since going through the retreat, I told her halfway through, I go, this is being rebranded. It was something else. It was a Journey to Love. And she's been trying to get me to do her Journey to Love retreat for over a year. And I'm like, another time. But she came and spoke at one of my events, and some of my clients became her clients. And I watched my clients go through her process and come out the other side just completely open and expanded. And I'm like, what are you doing? So finally I cave a few months ago and I go, okay, I'll come to your retreat, 5-day retreat. Okay. Blocking my calendar, no work's getting done. And I go into it. And what I discover at the retreat is we're doing work with ourselves before the age of 7. So before the age of 7, we see everything as true. The brain waves are in theta. And if you know anything about how the brain, different brain frequencies, say beta or beta levels, there's not a lot of learning that can even happen. But in theta, this is like meditative state, deep sleep. This is when the mind is most impressionable. And you can actually get into the limbic system, into the reptilian brain, and where a lot of the subconscious resides. And so what we were doing is we were doing all the work on the beliefs that had been embedded into who we were before the age of 7. Now, after the age of 7, other parts of the brain end up getting developed, and you have more of the conscious mind that exists. And finally, the neocortex, where we can analyze things. The trouble is when things are happening in your life, the part of the brain that's closest to the spinal cord, that brain stem, is making all of the quick decisions. You ever snap at somebody and go, oh, fuck. And then like 3 seconds later, it's like, I'm an asshole, right? Mm-hmm. And that's because your limbic brain is actually operating not out of choice, but is just automated. And so I would say the average person, by the time they're 30 years old, 95% of their behaviors are automated. Now, the majority of the automation that was set before you were 7 years old. Do you ever watch somebody get upset with somebody else at the grocery store and yell at them or stomp off or slam a door?
Yeah, they look like a little kid.
They look like a little kid. And so this is, you've probably heard of like a past life regression, but there's also age regression work that can be done. And so we were essentially doing some of that. And so you go back to pre-7 years old. Okay, when did I have the belief that I'm not valuable, or I have to work hard to be valuable, or I'm stupid, or these are little beliefs that float around. And you'll know if you have these beliefs because when something doesn't go well, like the way you wanted it to in your life, and you get down on yourself. I think everybody gets down on themselves from time to time.
Yeah, the self-critic.
Yeah, the self-critic steps in and says, hey, what the fuck? What exactly is that self-critic saying? My self-critic was saying at one time, you're a stupid loser. So anytime something didn't go as planned, that little script would run through my head. Now, how is that going to impact my behavior? Wow, like how many times did I almost compete at national level in a sport and then get hurt weeks beforehand, multiple years in a row? And the fact that I had this "you're a loser" conversation running through my head, I go, I was so terrified of being a loser that I would push myself so hard that I would get hurt before I had a chance to even step into the competition, because I had to work harder than everybody else if I was going to be as good, because I wasn't as good in my own mind. I was great. I was just fine. And so I was able to go back and do that work before the age of 7 and go, when did I start believing that I was stupid? And these were two separate things, but they got collapsed into one script in my head. It's like there was one moment where I started believing I was stupid, and there was another moment I believed that I was a loser. And these were two separate incidents where I adopted this as my truth. And then as I got older, it melded into one conversation. And through meditation, what I did was I was able to notice that language and go, oh, I'm driving down the road. I just left this meeting. It didn't go like I wanted it to go. Oh, you're a stupid loser ran through my head. And I go, oh, wait. I have my meditation practice. I'm being mindful. I'm just going to let that thought pass and go by. Yeah, I felt a little tug at my heart. We're just going to let it go. Now, did I really let it go or not? I don't know. But what I do know is when I went through this retreat and when I went in this process, what I did was I found the origin story. Like, where did I actually start believing that? And then what we were able to do is hijack my limbic brain, hijack the part of the brain that's responsible for the subconscious, remove that belief, and it took a while. And then what we do is we used things like RET, rapid eye technology, and hypnosis, and tremors, and some other exercises to embed beliefs that are counter to that, but in support of the life that we want to live. So it might be like, instead of I'm a loser, it might be something like I win at life. Now, I might not walk around going, I'm a winner, like I'm better than everybody else, but I'm going to walk around and go, I win at life. And now that's the script running in the background. So before, when, and you don't always notice the script that's running in the background. It's not always conscious. It's back there going that. So I might be, walking into the gym about to go do a hard workout. And in the background, I have this I'm a loser thing running in the background. Well, the possibility of me getting hurt in the gym or doing something stupid or feeling like self-conscious of, do I look cool in here? Am I as strong as the other guys? All this kind of stuff. I'm not noticing it on the surface, but it's still running the show. So when we did all this work, I noticed the idea is that you actually remove that. So even the subconscious script that's running that you're not even noticing gets shifted. In fact, I walked into the retreat thinking, I'm not going to be able to remember things in my childhood. And sure enough, we get into meditation, visualization. There are ways of hacking that and getting in there. And there were moments where it's like, I didn't have a memory, I had a feeling. And out of that, over time and conversation, it was able to bubble up. So what we did is I did all that work. And on the back end of doing that work, things in my life just started shifting automatically. All these things that I wanted my business to operate like this. I wanted to operate like this inside of my business. I wanted my relationship with my wife to be full of passion and romance. And it wasn't happening. But the reason that wasn't happening is because I wasn't showing up in a way that I could have that. And now all of a sudden, I probably worked through a dozen beliefs in a 5-day period. Some people that were in the retreat worked through close to 30 beliefs that were limiting them. And the reason I had a dozen and they had 30 is because for a couple people, it was their first experience with personal development work at all.
I see. Yeah.
And so they had never touched plant medicine. So they were getting into it like heavier.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to like dig a little bit harder. But I had the tools to dig harder because I'd done it before, stuff like this before. And so, it was really, really fascinating work. So like, all of a sudden my life started working. People talk about their life not working. And if your life isn't working, that means that you're out of integrity. And that integrity comes from you keeping your word. Say, I want this, and I'm going to do what it takes to make it work. And the moment something isn't working the way you want it to, you have to be willing to look at, well, what piece of this entire pie is missing that I need to make work? And so I think it took going through a retreat like that to get really honest with myself and go, oh, my relationship's not working because I'm not showing up in a way. I'm not really giving her the presence that I could be giving her. This is if you want to nerd out on the process a little bit, it's just fascinating. So 2.5 days on what your mother taught you, 2.5 days on what your father taught you. So it's about 30 hours of work on mother, 30 hours of work on father. The fascinating thing about mother work is when you're born, you come out and then you go to your mother's breast. For most people, and a lot of people, they maybe fed formula or taken by nurses, but it doesn't change the fact that we don't really view our mother before the age of 7 as separate from ourselves. She is us, and she's just an extension of who we are, like from like an ego perspective. And she teaches us the way she acts, the way she talks, things you may overhear her saying to other people, things you hear her say to herself. She's teaching you how to relate to yourself. Now, your father is your first love. He's the first person, whether you're a man or a woman, he's the first person that you're going to love. He's the first person you're going to learn to relate to and have a relationship with outside of yourself. And so he teaches you how to relate to others. So you have your mother teaching you to relate to yourself, your father teaching you to relate to others. And then, so you can imagine what kind of an impact that might have, you know, depending on what
massive.
And your parents are teaching you unintentionally. Most of what you learn from your parents is unintentional. They're not like sitting you down and giving you a lesson or this or that. It's just how they're talking to somebody. How do they behave? How do they interact with each other?
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Huge.
Yeah. Yeah. The more children's books that I've read, the biggest takeaway I've taken for parents listening is mom and dad's interaction with one another has probably the biggest impact outside of the interaction they have with the kids. Like, obviously, if you're a helicopter mom or if your dad beats the shit out of you, that's going to have a pretty big fucking impact.
Totally.
But if mom and dad are loving towards one another, if they rarely argue, or if they do argue, they're able to keep their voices low and come to an understanding, and everything is always resolved at some point, and the kids get to see the resolution as well, that's massive, because they know, hey, as in life, there's going to be conflict. But if we can teach our children how we can constructively work through that, and that there is a resolution, and the children are there to see that, that's one of the greatest teachings we can give our kids.
Yeah.
Okay, we can work through shit, and it doesn't have to be fucking flying tostadas going through there, smashing into the cupboard like at my house, or other shit that was going on, you know, and everyone's, all of our upbringing, if you're in your 30s, you can look back and we all went through some shit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is what I actually find comical, like maybe not ha-ha comical, but I see parents go, oh, I can't fight in front of the kids. But the energy between the parents is still fucking shitty.
Yeah, it's still fuck you, I fucking hate you, how could you think that? And the kids feel that. Yeah,
they don't have to hear it. Like, even if you're hiding your words, they totally get what's happening. I think as a parent, you have the responsibility. And when I say responsibility, I mean, you have the ability to respond. And this is one of those distinctions I got from these courses is people talk about responsibility as if it's a burden. No. Do you have the ability to respond or not? If you have the ability to respond to the situation or the ability to respond appropriately in a relationship, you are responsible. And so take that responsibility. So if you're in a relationship and you're parenting kids and you have the ability to respond to your partner in a way that's more loving, then do it. Yeah.
100%. That's like one of the best takeaways in any communication is speaking out of a place of love.
Totally.
You know, and if you really understand that, like, we have knee-jerk reactions based on emotional responses through our lens, largely impacted by our first 7 years, and that goes on unconsciously. So the knee-jerk reaction out of anger is to then hurt somebody, or fear is to then hurt somebody, or sadness is to then hurt somebody, right? You did this thing that made me feel a certain way, and I don't want to feel that way, and now I'm going to fucking lash out, as opposed to remembering, hey, I love you and I don't feel good right now, and this is why.
Yeah. So I did that work, work through, how I relate to myself, how I relate to how I relate to others. And then there's, what you learn in that process is, what are appropriate limits and boundaries for me? What does self-expression look like? There's like all these categories of personality. And the question that I asked myself throughout that process, and the question I've been asking myself for the last few months has been, what have I settled for? Where in my life have I been settling? And if you just sit, take a breath and ask yourself, get a journal out. Where have I settled? Like, fuck. I have settled in every aspect of my life. My relationship with my wife isn't what I want it to be. My business isn't what I want it to be. My relationship with my friends isn't what I want it to be. My relationship with community, my relationship with my body. I've been settling and putting things ahead of what I really want over and over and over again. And it's so easy to say, oh, I'm going to make an exception today, but tomorrow I won't settle. Guess what? You're practicing settling. You're settling and settling and settling. And one day you're going to wake up and fucking have nothing but regret. And so you have the opportunity right now is I challenge anybody, take an hour, do some Wim Hof breathing, sit up, grab a journal, and, ask yourself, where have I settled in my life? and look at every aspect. And if you can make a pretty long list, time to do some work. And the issue is if you don't actually, you can take action on those, and action is transformation. You will transform your life by taking action 100%. But if you don't want to repeat the pattern and create a necessity to do that over and over and over again, then you need to go back. You get to go back and heal those childhood wounds. And when you heal those childhood wounds, the pattern can dissipate. It has the opportunity to really just go away. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I think I started talking about it, the name of the retreat was Journey to Love.
Yeah.
Really close friend of mine. And she's been working mostly with people in the fitness industry, which is funny.
That's right.
And I go, I don't think this is branded appropriately. I go, this is Journey to Love. Like, it was hard for me to do this, and I'm doing it because we're friends, and you've convinced me that this is a good idea. I go, no, this is now training camp for the soul. And so I decided to team up with her and actually help her do it, because it was, I've done a lot of work. And I think that, I don't think that any one piece of work is the only thing anybody ever needs, and everybody's path is different. But this has had one of the biggest impacts on my life up to this point. I want to make it available to as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, brother. I think, and that's one of the reasons, like as I mentioned earlier, I'm so attracted to all the methods, to the shamanic breath work, holotropic breathing, to the plants, to meditation, to float tanks, to fucking NLP, like all of it, man.
I'll tell you this.
All of it has a big impact, right?
I did the 5-day retreat, and the next day I ate 6 grams of mushrooms.
Yes.
I was like, how do I cement this?
Let me lock all the wisdom and knowledge into place.
Yeah, it's like hypnosis, RET, Emdr, all this stuff. It's like, all right, if there's anything left, we're going to clean it up with a high dose of psilocybin here. And
the heroic journey.
I was right. It was good.
That's amazing, brother. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Damn. So tell me about your experience with EMDR, because that's another one that's come up. There was many people from all walks of life at this dinner for Rick Doblin and the MAPS organization at Aubrey's. And, obviously the purpose of that is to raise money for the phase 3 trials of MDMA with PTSD. And Aubrey's doing a lot of work with that, with the Cure is Near campaign. I think we can put in links in the show notes to that for people to see. We also have an infographic on what are the things to be expected from MDMA versus psilocybin, and just a wealth of knowledge there, as the science is backing what hippies and fucking psychonauts have been saying for years, right?
Yeah.
But
well, I think it's helping to ground it, because the issue is like, had I never found really great facilitators and all I had was experience with psilocybin, I would have made vast improvements in my life and happiness for sure. But the fact that I've met people who actually know what the fuck they're doing has made it even better. It's given us the structure.
That's how I felt working with Anahata out, and I spoke a bit about her in the past. I have a podcast with her coming up. She's she teaches shamangelic breath work, like holotropic breathing, and a number of other modalities out in Sedona. And she works with people if we're going to be opening up Spirit Ranch to the public here, and that's Aubrey's kind of 1 week getaway in Sedona, where you can really dive deep into yourself without plants and just fucking work on a lot of the same things you're talking about through various means. And I've learned quite a bit from Anahata. But what I wanted to say was, there was, people of all walks of life at this dinner and fundraiser. And I met a lady who is a therapist, and she was looking for alternative means to help, because if you're a good therapist and a good psychologist, you don't give a fuck what the medicine is.
Totally.
You just want people to get well, right? And the science is showing the power of MDMA, but she's had a lot of success using EMDR. And I've had a number of other people talk to me. Our buddy George, 12-year Marine, works with us with marketing. And this is just one of those other techniques where it's illegal. You can see a therapist to get it done. And there are different levels of practitioners, as with anything in life. Same thing with shaman. But the really good ones seem to have a pretty good success rate using EMDR.
Yeah, my exposure to it's pretty minimal, actually. I haven't had like heavy EMDR, but from what I understand how it works, it's pretty fucking magical. Basically, the trauma that exists in the brain, they're able to find it through your eyes and just smooth it out. Is just like a oversimplified way of talking about it. But I don't know too much about the details of how exactly it works.
Yeah.
So
well, maybe I'll get George on here. But yeah, it's just another tool, and it's at the very least,
tools are popping up all over.
There's tools all over the place, right? And I think the more we have access to those, I spoke quite a bit about that on the solo cast I did, talking about my own battles with depression. The most depressed states of my life were when I felt like I had nothing. I felt like I was stuck. And I don't mean nothing financially. I mean nothing like there was no way out. There was no other option. I knew one way to get something done, and if that way didn't work, I was fucked. And so when we add these tools to the arsenal, whether that's meditation, breath work, psychedelics, whatever the case may be, they allow us to see things with new angles, new perspective, and then that gives us new choices to make. Because we see that it's not fucking A or B. There's C, D, E, and F. And maybe there's A through Z, right? There's infinite fucking possibilities and many ways to go about things in life. And the more options we have, the better. Mm-hmm. But even just figuring out for yourself, if it's in my control, then I have a responsibility to work on that. And if it's not in my control, then I have a responsibility to let go of that.
Right.
I have a responsibility to surrender to it and allow things to happen, because ultimately we don't control everything in life. No. We're along for the ride, right?
Mostly.
Yeah. We have some control. We have a lot more control than we think we do, and a lot of responsibility on our outcomes personally. Yeah. And most importantly, we have the ability to choose how we feel about things, right? I'm in control of my state of being. No matter what happens to me from the outside, I control what happens on the inside.
Definitely. And that impacts how you're showing up to the situation. And another thing you have control over is how the world is occurring to you. And so this is probably one of the closest things to magic I've been able to experience sober. And that is shifting how a person is occurring to you. This will be like a really specific example. Is, say my wife is we're just not getting along on a thing. Like, I want to do something, she doesn't want to do it. We're not getting along. It's not happening. And I'm now starting to build resentment towards her. I'm like, oh, why does she got to be like this? I don't know if I want to be married anymore or whatever, right? In that moment and leading up to that, she's occurring to me as somebody who I don't like, you know. She's occurring to me as somebody who's stopping me from doing the things I want to do. That's how she's occurring to me. So what I do is I make a shift. I make a conscious choice for her to occur to me differently. And there's a lot of different methods to get the whole world to occur to you differently. I've done this with, like, how can this entire segment of the population occur to me differently? And one quickest way to shift it is I sit down and I write down 10 things I appreciate about that person or that group of people or whatever it is, whatever I'm having this feeling, this negative emotions towards. Because when you walk into a conversation or you approach a thing and it's occurring to you as something that's shitty outcomes will happen. So yeah, you definitely have control over your own state of being. And that's when I think about your state of being, it's a collection of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, all that kind of stuff. So what I do is I love this little experiment because it fucking works every time. And I remember the first time I did it, my buddy Jesse Emdr, he's the one that gave me this little exercise, and you should have him on sometime. He's awesome.
Hell yeah, brother.
So I just wrote down the 10 things I appreciate about Ashley, my wife. And I go, the 10 things I appreciate about her. And when I'm in a pissy mood, guess what I don't want to do? Sit down and write down the 10 things I appreciate about her, right? And so what I do is I just do it anyway. I go, okay, I'm grateful, or I appreciate Ashley for boom, boom. The first time I did it, it took me like 30 minutes to come up with 10 things. Had I been in a great mood, it would have taken me like 10 seconds. But it took me about 30 minutes. And then I was going to approach her about a conversation, about a thing. And she comes out before I can even open my mouth. She's like, you know what I've been thinking about? I think it's okay for this to happen. I'm like, what just happened here? But the funny thing is that has happened many times over, not just with her, with business partners and stuff like that. It's like, how can this person occur to me differently? And all of a sudden, 5 words into a conversation, everything that I thought the conversation was going to bring completely flips. And how the world is occurring to you is how the world will occur. And so you can really shift your state of being pretty quickly. And that's a practice that I've gotten better at. You know, I go, oh, I'm going to be grateful for this group of people. You know, I've done that for my audience. You know, I have an audience, and I go, sometimes, you know, it has nothing to do with the audience. I'm having this moment where I'm not really appreciating that. And for some reason, I'm feeling like it's a burden. I don't know if you've ever felt that before.
Big time.
Okay. Okay, I'm not the only one.
Big time. Very recently, too.
Yeah, like it feels like a burden. It's like, okay, how can this group of people occur to me differently? Like, I'll just be honest about it. You know, I was feeling like this CrossFit audience was being a burden at one point, and even though it's like my entire fan base, and like these are the people who I want to help the most, but you know, I've got my own internal shit. You know, how can people who are CrossFitters occur to me differently? I'm like, oh wow, this is just me. It's my shit. It's making this the way it is, and then I make that list, and all of a sudden, my entire life changes, my entire business changes, you know, and transforms, and in an instant. And like 30-minute exercise really take me 5 minutes if I am practicing it and doing it well. So that's one way to get a situation, organization, or a person to occur to you differently. And then I like to start my day off with thank yous. So like I want my whole universe to occur to me differently, or to occur to me in a way that it serves me. And so I like to wake up with thank yous. So I know a lot of people do gratitude journals and all that kind of stuff, but who walks around with common language and goes, I'm grateful for? You know, not me. I say, you know, when someone opens the door, I say thank you. And someone, you know, if someone were to, you know, buy me a car and
you should start the thank you journal, because gratitude journals are fucking selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, the gratitude journal's so 2008. We're doing the thank you journal by Mike Bledsoe.
Yeah, the new hotness.
You're out of business. Great gratitude journal. No, but I just say it out loud. I think of something I'm grateful for. I say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It builds so fast. It's like a snowball. And I'm like, I can't get the thank yous out verbally fast enough. I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I get high off of it. I get little tingles going up my back. I got the hairs on my head standing up. And I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And now I start my day from a place of thankfulness and gratitude. And I've already thanked the universe for showing up. So there's a little trick on that too. So you say, thank you, thank you, thank you. You build up this feeling. So the way you show up, the way you're being impacts how the world occurs to you and how things are going to happen. So now what I do is I get this fucking momentum where I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then I start thanking, I'm thanking the universe. That's how I'm thinking about it. Or I'm thanking myself. And I'm thanking myself for things that have yet to happen. So I thank myself and the universe for everything that's happened up to this point. And now I start thanking for the things that I want to happen. And it just feels good. And things just start happening. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome, brother. I like all the different tools for gratitude and things like that. That's something that's continually, there's a few messages that I've gotten consistently over the years with plant medicines. And I've seen gratitude written in gold writing multiple times in ayahuasca and psilocybin.
Oh yeah.
And just to embody that through every cell of your body, just fucking pure love and thanks. You know, that's a pretty warm feeling to have, you know, and I think setting the stage that way really puts us in a place where we are in appreciation, right? And so many times, many great self-help books, many great spiritual traditions, they're all alluding to different, you know, means up the mountain, and many paths lead up the mountain, right?
Oh yeah.
But that's such a big one to have, because ultimately, if we think about all the things we don't have, or the things that we haven't yet got, we're focused on a lack. We're focused on really being in a state of wanting and not having. You know, when we see everything we can be grateful for, we've got a lot. Everyone,
incredible.
Doesn't matter where you're fucking at. You've got a lot. If you can
hear this, you have an electronic device that didn't exist like 50 years ago or probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's incredible. We live in a really incredible time. It's 2018. Not only do we have all this technology and we're able to share all this information, but we have all these different religions of the world have been practicing their own form of spirituality. And for the first time in human history, we can have a global understanding of what's going on. You're talking about what's common amongst like these spiritual practices. And it's like, wow, we actually have access to all of this ancient wisdom simultaneously. And you can find, all these things that are common and go, oh, this is what's going to work for me. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny. And people poke fun at it. I forget the fucking movie it was. It was, God damn it. It was in it. Owen Wilson's in it. And I think Vince Vaughn and Will Ferrell is selling mattresses at some place. And he has a tattoo on his neck in Sanskrit. And it says, it means make wise decisions. But they're poking fun at this idea, and they do it again with Russell Brand in one of the movies where they're just saying like, you can't just take an amalgamation of everything you like from every major religion and call yourself spiritual. That's not how it works. It's bullshit. And what's funny is if it adds something to your life, it's not bullshit. You can't discredit real feelings because feelings are fucking real. That's how we interpret the world. That's how we go through life. Might be the only
thing you have.
Yeah, that's that is our waking consciousness.
That's why I buy shit. I buy shit. I drive a certain car. I live a certain way because it's going to make me feel a certain way. I'm going after feelings. People may say they're going after experiences, but they're actually going after the feeling the experience gives them.
Yeah. And oftentimes if we associate a feeling with an experience and that doesn't come to fruition, we have the experience without the feeling we thought was going to happen, there's disappointment.
Oh, expectations.
Yeah. Because the expectation is there that I thought going to the beach for a week would make me relaxed and happy. And my wife wanted to plan sightseeing and doing all this other shit and I didn't get to unwind. And so that expectation wasn't met. Now I look back on that trip as a burden and I still feel like I need a vacation after the vacation and all this, and it's like, well, for sure. That's where we have to align our expectations and our hopes with a real path to get there.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is what I need. This is what I'm expecting. So this is what I need in preparation to make sure that comes to fruition.
Yeah.
Right. To outline the path really can give us easier, small little nuggets to pick up on our way through that.
Yeah. I want to go, going back to the spirituality conversation, I think that all these different religions base this whole system around somebody's spiritual development. It's like Jesus Christ had an incredible amount of spiritual development. And then what we did was we built a whole religion around it and it kind of works. It'll get you like 50% there. But you actually have to go on your own path to get to like where you're actually wanting to go. So yeah, outlining it yourself. You have to, it's kind of strange. How do we outline our path or like what we want, but not be attached to it? So that like if it doesn't happen,
not be dogmatic about it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we do it with everything. We do it with food. This is the diet. We do it with training. Like,
got to be keto, got to be paleo.
Yeah,
only.
CrossFit's the way to train. No bodybuilding's the way to train. No powerlifting's the way to train. And it's like, maybe they're all fucking good. Maybe cleaning up your diet for paleo for a while is good for you for a particular amount of time. And then you're okay to go back to eating white rice. And then you're okay to fucking venture into other things. And you go low carb in the wintertime and you fucking train for a month doing hypertrophy bodybuilding style work, and then you go back to powerlifting for a month, and then you do some Metcons and some fucking some CrossFit stuff. Like, it's all good.
You're describing my 20s.
Yeah. But it's dope, right? Variety is king with anything in life.
Yeah.
And to really just the act of going for it is going to get you results.
Definitely.
Right? No matter what that is.
Taking action.
Yeah. And I've found, like, going back to the spirituality stuff, like I read the Bhagavad Gita on Audible And it was the version by, I think, Ursawan.
Oh, that guy's brilliant.
Dude, just fucking mind-blowing, right?
Just go search that guy's name. How do you say Ursawan something? Yeah, you can look up
something like that.
the Bhagavad Gita on Amazon, and you can search his name on YouTube. And you can hear this guy drop some knowledge bombs on spirituality.
Yeah, I think he was like Gandhi's main understudy. He has an English accent, you know, he's very
sounds smart.
Very easy to, but I'm just saying, like, for an Indian guy, you know, it's not like Abu off The Simpsons, you know, like it's very easy to understand. And I don't mean that in a negative racist way. I mean that like you could listen to him and understand clearly. Oh yeah,
I mean, I took physics too from somebody who had a thick Indian accent. That was a rough fucking class.
That's hard to get by, right?
Saying.
But you know, that teaching to me back, you know, 15 years ago, I wouldn't even have fucking opened the book. I'd have been like, nah, this is just some shit they believe in the East, you know? Yeah. And then through my own self-discovery and wanting to learn more and see what other cultures know, like I was blown away by how many nuggets of truth there are in that book. And then also how many parallels there are to Western religion and other things like that. Like there's a fucking tons.
Dude, there are so many parallels. It's ridiculous. People want to act like things are different. They're not that different. They're not. One of my favorite quotes when it comes to talking about like world religions and spirituality is a quote by Ken Wilber, who I think is one of the most brilliant people on this planet right now in regard to this conversation. And he says, not everybody can be wrong all the time. That's it. You know, it's like so many people don't want to look at somebody else's practice and accept that there's probably something in there that's valuable for them. And it's that kind of approach that allows us to integrate everything that's, you know, we have the opportunity of integrating everything that's happened up until this point into our lives. And if we want to act like we're isolated from not just the rest of the world in this moment, but from our past and from our ancestors' past and all of that, we have the opportunity to really integrate all of that into our current life. I think that's the key to having fullness.
Yeah, because we can round out some of the corners. You know, we fill in the gaps with new knowledge, new experience, and different approaches to things. Mm-hmm. Right? It can be we're all going up the mountain, but we can take different paths to get there. You know, and at different times in your life, it's necessary for the change up. Yeah, you know, to break up the monotony of life. Yeah. Very important.
It's interesting going through, say, some transformational experiences because the intent of a lot of these is to let go of the past, you know, and I think it can get really tricky to figure out what is it that I need to let go of. But I've gone through the process of letting go of everything and then realizing, oh, there is so much there that I'm leaving behind. I can integrate all the stuff that was serving me. There's a lot of good things about when I was in the Navy that was just really, really positive, that really shaped who I am today. And then there was a lot of things that I wanted to get rid of. And for a period of time, I got rid of everything. And now it's like, oh no, there's parts of that I really need to integrate, where I have the opportunity to integrate into my current life to make it a much richer, fuller experience.
So the plan then would be to take, give it the new name again. What was the new name of the 5-day? The guide to the soul.
Training camp for the soul.
Training camp for the soul.
Training camp for the soul.
So
no fucking around here.
There are, you know, this is done in Southern California and it's been done primarily out there, but the plan then would be to roll this out to other major cities.
Yeah. So yeah, the next one's gonna be March 15 in near San Diego. Idlewild is where we're gonna be. And then we're talking about doing it in Austin. And we may do it in some other cities too. We'll see how it goes. I love doing it in San Diego because it's so easy, but Austin, Texas is awesome. I'm not gonna make any promises, but
I definitely want to give it to go. Obviously, we had I think we got to talk about it for like an hour during the Super Bowl, and my wife and I are both fucking pumped to give it a real try and just to see like what develops, and especially, you know, when I take this back as my only real frame of reference doing Spirit Ranch in Sedona, we had I think I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but working with Anahata, there was a consciousness relationship workshop that she did on one of the days that was 2 hours long. And I've got my wife right there and I'm like, dope, man. Nobody else has their significant other with them. We're going to really get to go deep and learn some new things about each other and be better communicators. And right when we sit down, it had nothing to do with your significant other. She said, who is the greatest teacher you've ever had? She's like, think of that person. She waits a minute and she's like, okay, the greatest teacher you ever had it's not necessarily the person who's taught you the most good. It's the person that's taught you the most, period. The good and the bad, right? So that's usually your mom or your dad or a sibling. It's somebody you spent the most amount of time with, and they've taught you the ways you want to live and all the things you don't want to live with, the things that you don't like about yourself, the things that you've embodied that you want to change. And really, especially as a parent, like how you don't want to parent. Like, what is that? And for me, it was fucking 2 hours of my mom. And it was one of the most beautiful fucking 2 hours I've ever had. I took pages of notes, more than I do in an ayahuasca ceremony. And that was just 2 hours out of the 6 days, right? I have a whole fucking workbook full of notes. So with the right teachers and hearing different language and different methods to get there, there's so much you can extrapolate in a short amount of time. I mean, you do a 5-day retreat like that and it's a life-changing experience, and you probably have far more that develops just like after, 3 days of ayahuasca. The medicine continues to work. You get new revelations. Shit comes up in your dreams. Shit comes up while you're meditating, and you continue to learn and expand upon the things that you're given in that 5-day experience.
Oh yeah, it can take. I was talking to my friend Onnit, who does the training camp for the Soul program, and she notices and keeps up with her people afterwards. 18 months later it seems to be the length of the life cycle of that transformation. And I noticed the same with the ayahuasca. The first time I did ayahuasca, I thought I had integrated in like a month originally. And then looking back on it, I think it took me a good 2 years to integrate that first ayahuasca experience. And I had a lot of experiences between, but it took a long time for me to integrate in my life and for it to really sink in to my being. So I think, I think a lot of times people just think about the medicine or just the retreat, or I'm going to have this transformational experience. And then, I went over the weekend and on Monday I'm calling all my friends. I'm so fucking awesome now. And, they're going, yeah, we've seen this before.
Yeah.
He gets really excited after these things. And it's like, but what really sticks, and that's when the real work starts.
That's the work, right?
Yeah.
That's the fucking work.
That's the work.
I had a shaman in, they're not shaman, they're called taitas in Colombia. And they call ayahuasca yahe there. And so we had done the yahe retreat. It was me and 10 people from all over the world, dude, from Sweden, Finland, Mexico. They came in from all over. And he told this story about how he had done, I think it was like his 3rd ceremony. And he told his wife, he's like, man, I'm healed. I know this thing. I know it. I feel it. I'm healed. And she's like, but how do you know you're healed? And he's like, I fucking know it. I know it in my heart. I know it through everything that I'm healed. It'll never happen again. I've been fixed. It's all good. It went through me and I feel different. She's like, I don't know that it's permanent, and then he started to get angry by that, right? Because there was resistance there, like, fuck you. How do you know that I'm not healed? Like, what are you talking about? And it was really bothering him. And he's meditating on it. 2 weeks went by and then he realized, like, oh, I'm not healed, but I have awareness. I have awareness at that thing that I don't like.
Right.
And all it takes is shining that light on the darkness for me to catch it sooner. It doesn't mean that I won't have that feeling again or that I won't go through some shit that continues to test me in my progression. But with that awareness, it's much easier to catch sooner. And then I can let it go and surrender to it, or think intelligently and constructively on what are the ways that I can fix the situation.
Totally. I want to share an integration story, because I think one of the things I try to share is practical applications in my own personal life so it makes sense for others. And I think a lot of times we talk about ayahuasca and integration and people are like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? But I had a very direct experience that people I think will understand. And I was sitting with Mother Aya one night with my wife. It was just me, my wife, and a couple of ayahuasqueros. So we lucked out. And
private training.
Fuck. That was an interesting ceremony overall. I think I had an ayahuasca experience for about 45 minutes of that night. She came in she cleaned house and she got out, and I sat there and watched our 2 ayahuasqueros and my wife, having their journey experience. And I'm just like, wow, when's this going to be over? But I got exactly what I needed. So I went in, Mother Ayahuasca comes and she heals me of this thing that I'd been dealing with. And it was some shame, ayahuasca tends to get in there and clean up around guilt and shame and all these kinds of things. And I had some shame about a particular instance in my early 20s. And I'd never shared it with anybody. I was like, oh, I'm not going to share it like this thing. And what's funny is I've shared it with people since, and they're like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. But I was making such a big, you bring it on yourself, right? And it's not something I would be proud of. Definitely not proud of it. But I got a lot of healing during the ceremony around that. And then she told me, you didn't even have to sit with me to have this healing. Your healer is laying right next to you, my wife. And she goes, anything that you don't love about yourself, she's there to love and teach you to love. I go, what the fuck? And that was when the medicine just left. She said that, and that's when I was just like, oh, I'm done. And she came in, delivered the message, and then took off. And so that night I was just blown away, and I had so much more appreciation for my wife that night. And the next morning we get up and I tell her exactly what happened. I said, hey, this is the message I got. And she goes, oh yeah, totally. I love every part of you, even the parts you don't love about yourself. And I go, oh. And I tell her about the thing. And she goes, I still love you. And I love that part of you. And I go, wow. And it felt so good. And then that night I go, well, I just want to share a bunch of stuff I've never shared with you. I started digging stuff from my childhood that I was ashamed of, that I didn't like, this or that, And I started sharing with her. She starts sharing with me. And I'm like, oh, I still love you. I still love you. And so we're in a relationship where we have the opportunity to heal each other, because where we feel like we're not healed is the parts of ourselves that we don't love. And so she goes, I still love you. And it gives me permission to love myself in that area too. It's like, wow, I didn't think anybody could love me and love that part of me. But because she's demonstrated that she can still love me, I can love me too. And so, yeah, that's called integration. I took the lesson, and what I didn't do is I didn't just go, cool, I feel like I got healed from that one experience and now I'm going to go on about my life. It's like, no. Mother Aya said, I get to share this with my wife and she gets to help me heal. So now I don't even need the medicine for that to happen. I can just, when there's something that I'm feeling ashamed about, I just bring it to my wife. Makes it easy.
Hell yeah, bro.
Ish. So there's this thing I'm completely ashamed of. I want to share with you.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Well, fuck, man. We hit an hour. We're going to jump on your podcast here after a quick smoke break.
Perfect.
But where can people find you online?
Go over to thebledsoshow.com if you're looking for these types of conversations. And I've already interviewed you once. You can check the other interview I did and the one I'll be posting. And then if you're really into the fitness scene, go over to barbellshrugged.com.
Yeah, you guys have fucking two excellent podcasts, brher.
Yeah, thank you.
Where are you on the social medias?
Instagram, Mike_Bledsoe, and on Facebook, you can search my name, Mike Bledsoe, and I think it's like facebook.com/Bledsopia or something.
Dope, brother. But, yeah. Thanks for joining us, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hell yeah. Pipe.